Well, after leaving him hanging, President Trump has finally agreed to a meeting with Anthony Albanese. I'm joined now by broadcasting legend Ray Hadley. Ray, I think it's a bit like a guy who doesn't text back a girl and then eventually he's like, all right, let's go on a date.
Yeah, I don't think that at the current time that Anthony Albanese at the G7 in Canada is high on the list of President Trump's priorities. I think it'll be a very short meeting. He'll ask for a reduction in tariffs. He'll talk about AUKUS. And I think there are other world leaders in far more prominent positions that will want a bit of the president. And I think that's where he'll go.
And the president's likely to say to Albanese that he's got to increase Australia's defence spending as a percentage of GDP. This is something that Albanese is just childishly refusing to do, even though NATO countries have committed to 5%. You know, we're out of step with the international community now.
Well, it's like the Labor government are pretending what's happening in Israel and Iran isn't happening. I heard your comments earlier with Stephen particularly about Penny Wong. And you've got to be my generation, or probably before my generation, to remember Neville Chamberlain. He made 3 visits to Germany in 1938, between September 15 and September 30. He went there 3 times. And he came back convinced that Adolf wouldn't do the wrong thing, and in fact announced to the British public, we'll have peace for our time. 5 months later, Adolf Hitler invaded Poland and we had the carnage of World War II because of that madman. So Penny Wong must have read some biography about Neville Chamberlain and thought, that's a good way to go. Let's decide that the Iranians are really good people.
Yeah.
And this business about her contacting her counterpart, the foreign minister, she'd be blatantly aware, given where she is in life, that homosexuals are put to death in Iran. Women can't go out without a niqab or a hijab on, and if they do, or show any part of their body from their neck to their feet, they can be put to death effectively, which they are. Homosexuals are frequently hung. And how do you deal with madmen? How do you pick up the phone and say, now look, we'd like you to consider just pulling back a bit. I mean, you're dealing with raving lunatics. Why waste the call?
No, and also so offensive that she has the call with the Iranian foreign minister before speaking to Israel. I mean, why is it? And it has the same message for both sides.
But I mean,
exercise restraint.
From the very first day of all of this, Penny Wong has been on the wrong side of the argument. And one of the great, I guess, ironies is that this mob weren't punished at the last federal election for, I mean, Israel should have been a really big talking point for the Liberal National Party and their treatment of Israel by people. I mean, I'm not blaming Penny Wong that she's got this perception that everything Israel does must be wrong. It's a perception that's right through the world for some particular reason for the minority of people, as if, I mean, whether it's Sydney University or some other campus across this country or in the United States of America, where young people who have no idea of what happened prior to 1999, you know, are marching on the streets. They don't know what's going on. It's so infuriating.
I tell you what, I mean, this government is so hostile towards Israel and the Jewish state. I actually find it hard to live in the country at the moment. I mean, it's hard to deal with it.
Well, you're reflecting what many people of the Jewish faith have said to me. The Jewish Board of Deputies, when I was still on air up until December last year, would constantly contact me. And it's not some sort of, you know, idle observation that their children don't feel safe, they don't feel safe, their schools are under guard. And then you've got the lunacy of people, you know, with the graffiti attacks and Nazi symbols and the rest of it. I mean, it's not the Australia I grew up in. I was born in 1954, 70 years ago. This is a great country. It's a wonderful place. But we're being let down by minorities who are raving mad.
And our leadership who are also raving mad, as it turns out, the political leadership. Ray, I want to ask you about the coalition. They haven't even really begun the debate about net zero. I mean, they keep saying there's going to be a review. It's like they're pushing it off. How are they ever going to arrive at a position, and what do you think it should be?
Take a lead from the New South Wales Nationals. They had a meeting in Coffs Harbour last Thursday. There was a motion put forward, forget about net zero 2050, and it was carried by a vast majority. There was cheering and clapping when they carried it. So David Littleproud needs to look at what happened with, and this wasn't Dougal Saunders making a decision, this was the members of the National Party, the rank and file. And look, I'm not some sort of climate denier, but we can't get where they want to go in the next 10 years. We probably can't get there in 20 years, but who knows what happens in 25 years, 2050. There'll be different forms of power we haven't even thought of. I mean, I grew up in the media without a mobile phone. When I first started in the 1980s, there was no computers. We had people writing up news bulletins on typewriters, old-fashioned typewriters.
No Google. I remember going down to the library at News Corp in the basement to look up, you know, to get folders on things for the senior journalists.
Well, I mean, most broadcasters, particularly those notable ones, had a set of Encyclopaedia Britannica in their office to go and have a look at what happened at varying stages. Now you press a button and you get it all. So the world has evolved in the 40 years I was in the media, and it'll evolve in the next 10, and so will energy. It'll all evolve. And this panic at the moment, and there's a story that you haven't touched on, and if I can just take a minute.
Go for it.
It's about these electric scooters and bikes. Now, we had a bit of a blitz last week by police in Bondi, fining people for no helmets, speeding and all the rest of it. And everyone thinks that they're wonderful things because they're an affordable mode of transport, and the kids, 12-year-old, get on, you know, double their siblings and their friends and all the rest of it. Then they take home the lithium battery and plug it in. If you live in Sydney, the power comes from coal-fired power stations. And so does the power that powers the Teslas. I mean, it does my head in.
I know.
Anyway,
we're touching on
I digress as I often
tonight.
do.
I've you know, often spoken about the difficulties of cyclists on the road, but story for another day. Next we'll be on to recycling. Then it'll be all my pet topics in one show.
We'll be in tacit agreement about everything. Well, there'll be no blue or anything between you and me.
Now, Ray, I can't go before you tell us about the gold dinner. I mean, you are being credited with personally raising an extraordinary amount of money with the touching story of little Lola.
Look, it's very kind of people who have said all of this over the course of the weekend. For those of you in other parts of Australia, they have a gold dinner annually where they've raised tens of millions of dollars for the Sydney Children's Hospital Network, being Westmead and Randwick. And they broke a record this year with $83.4 million in one night.
Amazing.
I did the auction. There were 4 lots that brought incredible money. There was generosity you've never seen before. I'll just give you one example of the generosity. Christina Cornelia, the CEO, the former Premier, gets up and says, rightio, for $500,000, this is what you'll do for one of these children's hospitals. Could be a theatre, could be something very important in terms of technology. So people put their hands up. And I walked up to this lovely young lady, a lady of Chinese birth, obviously, but an Australian citizen. And I put the microphone to her and said, what would you like to do? She said, I'd like to give $500,000.
Wow.
I nearly fell over. So I said, that's most kind of you. What's your name? And she identified herself. And then the young lady sitting next to her, obviously a friend, tapped me on the arm and I said, yes, I'd like to give $500,000 as well. I mean, and that set the agenda for the rest of the night. You know, Qantas were very generous. There's a club in southwestern Sydney, also on the northern beaches, also on the central coast, called Mounties. $13.5 million they gave.
Such wonderful generosity, and you wouldn't find a more worthy cause, Ray. Thank
100%.
you so much for your time. Love
Thanks
it.
a lot.
See you next Monday.
See you next time.
All right.